Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our exclusive webinar on study in UG in New Zealand and Australia, affordable and world class. In today's session, we'll explore why New Zealand and Australia are among the top choices for undergraduate studies, offering global recognized degrees, excellent career opportunities, and a safe multicultural environment. We'll also discuss how these destinations are affordable compared to other study abroad options. By the end of this webinar, you'll have a clear understanding of admission process, scholarships, career pathways, and how to choose the right university for your future. So let's get started. Our first guest today, Mr. Angad, who is an Ivy League admission consultant with a remarkable track record of guiding over 3,000 plus students into universities like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, and many more. With a 95% of success rate, he has worked with students across 50 plus countries. He has also been associated with leading research institutions such as Yale University, Carnegie Mellon, and many more. Good morning, Angad sir.
A very warm morning, Dipesh sir. Thanks for this kind introduction.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure to introduce our second guest, Mr. Suzanne, Head of Counseling at Allen Global, with years of expertise in guiding students towards top universities worldwide. He has helped thousands of aspirants successfully plan their academic journey abroad. His deep knowledge of admissions, scholarships, and career pathways make him a trusted mentor for students and parents alike. Today, he'll be sharing valuable insights on undergraduate study opportunities in New Zealand and Australia, focusing on affordability, world class education, and future career prospects. Good morning, Sujan sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Uh, Thank you.
So, first of all, I have couple of questions for both of you. So, my first question is to Sujan sir. How do tuition fees, living cost, and scholarship compare between Australia and New Zealand? So basically, in these two countries, in terms of fee part, living cost, scholarship, admission, so all these things, like how can we compare in these two countries? Sujan sir.
Well, so answering to your particularly for this question, living cost, tuition cost varies on multiple factors. Uh, for especially we are talking about the undergrad programs, we will be stick to the undergrad, the mostly. But as we have seen many times, students choosing to the major cities, right? So particularly when we are talking about the top programs and major cities, of course, the tuition fee for these two countries will be little on the higher side. But of course, when you're comparing Australia and New Zealand together, of course, New Zealand will be at the lower side for the most of the programs. Australian universities have so when we are discussing these two countries, we have to discuss, the tuition fee and living cost. Living cost will remain same for tier one cities in Australia, especially like when you're going to campus in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, you're going to kind of these cities. Of course, living cost will remain same for almost these all tier one cities. But if you go to the tier two cities, their cost will be varying and you may have that chance to save more money there in that location. So I'll start with first with the tuition cost bifurcations, right? I'll start with that of courses like, let's say, if some of the students are looking for arts, commerce, and some subjects which are some of them are non-tech, right? So the tuition cost will be in Australia around 15,000 to $35,000 per year. Current rate is around of 58 rupees. It will be between 55 to 60 only. So when you will multiply it to, let's go with the average value 55, again the cost would come around of 17 to 80 lakhs per year, right? Not more than that. Maximum I'm telling you, because on the higher side, if we go with the 40,000 AUD for, especially for the arts, commerce, science programs, so the cost will be around to it. But if you go to the New Zealand for such programs, the cost will be, even for the top three universities like AUT, University of Auckland, and Messi, kind of Otago, the cost would be around, in INR, 15 lakhs rupees or lesser than that. So there would be saving of, approximate again 2 to 3 lakh rupees per year if you're choosing arts, commerce, science program, right? In these two ocean countries. Massive difference you will see in the engineering and medicine programs. Massive difference you will see there. Even in the Australia itself, you will find some of universities, those are in group 8, they will have that of higher tuition fee. Some of them really offers scholarships, but we'll talk about this later. But right now, when we are considering profiles with no scholarships, then in these fields like medicine, engineering, computer science, this will be significantly ranging in 40,000, 45,000, 50,000, right, 60,000 sometimes in universities like University of Melbourne. UNSW has tuition fee of 58,000 AUD. Uh, I'll talk about later that how we can try when we are trying for universities, such universities for scholarship, how much we can try in the first round, how much we can try in the second round also, and how much we can try when we have joined the universities. So we surely would have that of chance to get some scholarships, but that depends to it what kind of the profile you have, right? Because on your scholarship, you will not get on the base of the financial background that you have, unlike US, Canada, and the other countries. Here you have to show your, the merit, and merit generally gets defined here by your academic scores, your 10th, 12th scores. And if you're not been able to present your academic side well, you might not be able to see that difference in the tuition fee in Australia. Similarly, in New Zealand, the cost is oftenly high for such programs, health, medicine, engineering, computer science, and related to these majors. So the cost would come around of 35,000 New Zealand dollar to 70,000, New Zealand dollars too. That's, couple of universities, especially in the top names. Especially in the universities like University of Auckland, AUT, these has the higher, tuition rates. But again, you could have a chance to get some scholarships if you have, let's say, 85% plus in your 12th, and you're coming from, let's say, the IB board, and you're really looking for such universities to join in their, with their uh, offered programs, then you can also show your the inclination toward to such programs by writing to them, showing interest, contacting professors for just to get some, uh, benefits on applications. Application wise, if you have 80 plus, you'll not get rejected. But a scholarship is something we surely have to talk about. Uh, these things either with the university professionals, or you can take that, the questions, you can route it through us too. Uh, Particularly when we are not talking about postgrad, so this will be the cost, especially for non-science program, I mean non-tech program, and then tech program and science programs. So major difference you will see in the tuition cost here is maximum in the $35,000 in Australia, or 37. With a scholarship it can go, thoda और नीचे भी. That's we can also separately discuss when you're finalizing universities. But when we are talking about some universities where there is programs like B computing, B computer science, B eng mechanical engineering in U Sydney, U Melbourne, in group 8 colleges, tuition fee will be on the slightly on the higher side. Difference will come, but the scholarship can help you minimize this cost too. Uh, Similarly, the living cost, as I discussed, right? Living cost in Australia is uh, varying on the cities. Major cities, there is kind of the cities divided into three category: tier one, tier two, tier three. So by the one, two, three, you can easily define it. The tier one is highly expensive. Tier two is in the middle, in the mid size of it, and the lower one will be least expensive. So accommodation is also based on it, how you're sharing your, you're sharing your flat with someone, you're living on campus. So that way you can majorly do certain changes in this living cost too. But when we are particularly talking about, let's say you are going for the on campus or off campus, so what is the average cost would come when you're sharing your room with, let's say, with the one person, and then what is the total cost would come if you, let's say, going with the flat options, right? Then what total cost would come monthly, right? So on a month basis, for the visa purpose, there's different showcase, right? There's a different uh, amount you have to show to the visa officer, but in actual what cost comes, it will be depending on the cities, how you are living your life. If you're saying that you want to live your lavish life there in Australia, of course you will be spending more. If you're extravagant, of course you'll be spending more. If you want to live the same Indian life there in Australia, of course you will be spending more. So as a student, how you can save your money? Of course, there will be multiple factors, multiple levels where you can save your money. Cities will be, of course, helping you. How far, how, like near you are living to the university campus. It will be defined by, these factors. So in Australia, on a rough side, it will be around of 1500 to 2000, 2500 sometimes, I would say, in for some students, not for all. But average will be around 1500 AUD per month will be the cost, which will be including your rent uh, of, let's say, of 600, 700 uh, of the total, I would say. But that again depends to it how and how you like if you're sharing room, of course the cost would come around to the 300 or 600 per month. But sometimes what I have seen is student not choosing those options, then cost would be around of 600 per week too. So 600 will become 2400 just for the rent, right? So how you can lower down this cost? By sharing your room with someone, by making friends, by sharing your room with the classmates, and living in the one single room sets kind of it, right? If you go for dorms options, of course, you can save a lot of money. So cost monthly would come around 1500 to 2000 overall if you're sharing things with someone. And uh, it will be including everything, food, transport, other miscellaneous charges, everything will be included in this, but that will be depending on how far you live to the university and these all things. But on average scale, it will be 1500 on the lower side, 3000 will be on the higher side if you're, again, I'd say you're living your alone life, lavish, you have bought a car, you're not using public transports, then it will come around of 3000 per month. And on the other side, New Zealand, any cities would not be, like coming around to any of these amounts. It will be lower than 1500 New Zealand dollar. It will be below to this because lifestyle is pretty cheaper. I mean, pretty good with that of cheaper rates in New Zealand, all cities. So cost is very effective, and estimation of the per year cost would come around the visa generally estimations we give around of, that's the public figure actually given by the High Commission. So that's 29,710 for Australian dollar for Australia visa application. But uh, as I mentioned, it's depend on the multiple factors. So actual cost will be ranging around 16,000 to 22, 25, roughly around to it. In INR, it will be around 70,000, 80,000 per month, or maximum it will go around of 1 lakh 60, 1 lakh 50 per month for the entire living cost. In New Zealand, as mentioned, the cost would come around of 15 to 18,000 for a year of entire living cost, right? New Zealand dollar is comparatively cheaper too, and 18 would come around of 9 to 10 lakh rupees per annum, the total cost of your living in New Zealand. Uh, Rent is the biggest variable, right? If it's in Australia, it's in any cities you compare in the New Zealand, you won't find any of the cheaper options, because New Zealand in any cities you generally will find the smaller, the kind of the options for living, for rent. Transport is also very inexpensive. Uh, Groceries are all, like you can easily buy and share with your friends. So as per me, living cost in Australia is higher than New Zealand. But the kind of universities you will be getting in Australia, if you'll see the ranking for the universities, especially in the side of Western Australia and in the Brisbane side, the ranking is still in the top 50, right? So you can assume those options if, let's say, you wanted to go in the top 8 universities of Australia and with that of inexpensive options outside of these big cities like Sydney, Melbourne. Of course, you would be having options like, the Queensland, uh, options like, Canberra, right? The options like Perth. There, the cost of education would be, I mean, cost of entire attendance would be slightly on the cheaper side. Yeah, and you could have that chance to save you roughly around 15,000, $20,000 in total when you're going to these cities, not special, though it's a tier one city. But if you compare to the Sydney lifestyle, to Melbourne, to Brisbane, to, Queensland, any cities, and then Canberra, and then you Perth, of course, you will find the stark difference in all. And that is why the cost goes up. Even in India, if you'll see, if you are living in the metro cities, you would have that, you would be paying more, the rent there. If you're in Bangalore, if you're in Pune, if you're in Delhi, you'll be spending more, right? Similarly, it works out in the same way. So the cost would be depending on the things like how you live your life and what kind of the options you choose by, from your side. Now coming to how you can save your money and how can you can lower down these all costs. Of course, the scholarship is something that's upfront, right? Anyone is applying for any universities, upfront what they can apply. Of course, scholarship. And इसके अलावा भी there are multiple options that you would have, right? It's not something that only the scholarship is the savior for you. It's not something that only scholarship is available in these colleges. There would be grant, there would be fellowships, there would be, other options where you can aim for some financial aid like TA, GA, RA. TA is teaching assistantship, RA is research assistantships, GA is when you're helping to the graduate team. You could have a chance to stand out your profile and go for these scholarships very easily. And these are generally offered to the international students because international students' fees are comparatively thrice and four times to the local students' cost, right? So they generally get these opportunities. Scholarship is merit based, right? Other financial aid is not merit based. It's based on the kind of profile you hold in the country and how you approach to the professor, how you approach to the team, how you approach to the different bodies, right? So scholarship and financial aid, these are the difference in these two terms. But kind of the scholarships you will be able to apply in Australia is first, of course, merit based. As I mentioned, the research based grant is also available. Like in Monash, there is a grant of 5,000 to 10,000 per year. In Sydney, there is a scholarship of 20 to 20%. It means 20% you can get upfront and 20% when you're joining the university. So kind of that options is available in university, but how you are aiming to it, that's something depending on the profile that you hold. So for Sydney, less than 85%, 90%, and you're aiming for scholarships, you can try, we can try also, but guarantee kind of things will come when you have that of 90 plus, right? When you are, let's say, appearing some exams to support your application, like SAT, APs, and all. If you're appearing SAT and then you're scoring, let's say, for Sydney around of 1380, 1400 plus, you could have a chance to get that of 20 additional percent of scholarships too. So when you're, let's say, in US, the cost is coming around 2.5 crore, 2 crores, more than 2 crores for entire cost of education in US for 4 years program, right? And then when you're going to, let's say, the universities like Sydney, University of Melbourne, Melbourne scholarships, particularly, I'll talk about that very, very low chance, very fatty. for any international students to get in with that of 20%, 5, even for the 5%, chances would be less. But yeah, of course, we are talking about, let's say, universities like Uni Sydney, Uni UNSW, University of Canberra, right? ANU. The universities like the Western University, University of Western Australia, University of Queensland. These universities offer scholarships, and that too to the 30 to 50% scholarships. So that will be depending on these factors. In Sydney, of course, SAT will be helping you to get that scholarship up to 40%. You consider it when you're spending your 2.5 crore in US for the such, the tier two universities, or let's say the very competitive schools. Here you are getting admission in top 50 schools, and with that of 50% of, completely off on the total cost what you were spending in US. And then out of that, you're getting off again the 40% or 30% or 20% on the total sum that you're going to pay in Australia for, and that too for the tier one university, that too for the group 8 colleges, and that too for the QS top 50 ranked colleges. So it makes more sense choosing, of course, Australia and New Zealand options right now. Looking at to the other aspects, currently there are a lot of things that are ongoing, which we can easily see on the news. So scholarship is in New Zealand, uh, based on certain other things like the background that you have, the you know the merit, of course, right? That's the one of the criteria that you should always have. The merit generally gets defined in these two countries by your academics. If your academics are good, above 75, 80, I'm sure with that of CBSE, ICSE background, you could have a chance getting some really good amount of scholarship from any of these colleges. But for above to it, above, I mean, 20% से ज़्यादा चाहिए, तो थोड़ा और प्रोफाइल पे वर्क करना पड़ेगा. Amount will be varying. As I mentioned, it is not depending on the kind of the university you apply to. It could be 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, 40%, 50% too. Because undergrad is not more of research program, so it will be not above to it in most of the cases. But yeah, let's say you're trying to some decent colleges, not very high ranked. Of course, you could have also chance to apply and get in with a 50 plus of the scholarships in Australia and New Zealand, both locations. In New Zealand, there are 8 universities and other are colleges. In out of 8, you most of them you will find the triple A credited, right? A plus 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 credited universities. So most of them are research oriented. If you're really looking for research oriented programs and with that of low cost, with vibrant lifestyle, New Zealand is an option for you. Because अभी compare कर रहे थे US versus Australia, and then now Australia versus New Zealand. US is costing you more than 2 crores, right? Australia is costing you 1 crore, 1.2, 1.3, and then New Zealand is costing you again, इससे 30% कम with that of same kind of universities. So it's completely a student's choice. And if in case anyone is interested, Dipesh, to talk about particularly on any of these things, we can discuss in detail. But this is all the overview about tuition living I can give. Yeah. So ROI is uh, depending on the how much you invest, right? Of course, if you're doing expense, you'll not think of getting return of interest of your investment. So when you're making investment, then you'll think of to get that, the amount returned to you, right? So of course, the whatever the amount you are spending in Australia, I have seen students from the last all, my years, my working years, I would say I have seen students getting this year also 3 and 4 students confirmed to me on the very first day that, sir, I got 25, the AUD per hours of the part-time job here, and that too in the teaching segment, that too in the very niche segments. It's not something like you're working for any restaurant or you're working, as a, like the general jobs, the generally people think, right? So you're not doing such things, right? You're going for doing and getting some returns on the very first day. So very first day is helping you. Let's say you're making $25 per hour, right? And you're getting that of 80 hours per month to work. You can easily multiply that how you're making and saving your money from the very first month. So return of investment is really good when we are particularly talking about any of these two countries. I have seen no students coming back to India or any other countries for their, you know, any purposes, right? So return of investment, whatever the amount they're spending, when we are talking about 2.5 crore, here we are talking about 1 crore, and then very first day you have started earning of your, let's say of at least for the living cost, you're getting out from your, the part-time jobs. So in short, you're able to save. Total is 1 crore. Very first year you saved your 10 lakhs. Second year again 10, 20 lakhs, and then 10 lakhs. Let's go with the roughly with the 10 lakhs, on average per year. You're in the very first 3 years, 4 years, you saved your all entire tuition fees, and then total cost of attendance becomes just your tuition fee. So in short, you already have saved entire things, and the very first year onward, you will have that chance to get that of 75 to $85,000 in these cities. Uh, when you are hitting market for the the full-time jobs. So in part-time, you already have saved a lot of money, and then in full-time, you could easily start saving money and like paying back to the sponsors. If your parents are a sponsor, you can start paying back to your parents too from the very second year of your job journey.
So thank you so much, sir, for all this information. Uh, Now I would like to ask which one more question to Angad sir, which is the most asked question for from all the students and parent. And recently, I can see in the Q&A section also, one of the student has asked the same question. So Angad sir, I would like to ask you, medicine, which is the most important, like in India, so like it's highly competitive. So what are the exact steps to get into undergraduate medicine in Australia and New Zealand, including exams like ISET versus UCAT ANZ, exam patterns, academic prerequisites, interview formats, which university accept each pathway. So basically, we would like to understand कि medicine अगर हमको ऑस्ट्रेलिया या न्यूजीलैंड में करने जाना है तो what all are the requirements, और वो कंपेरेटिवली अगर दोनों कंट्रीज में देखेंगे तो कहाँ, किस कंट्री में क्या प्रॉज है एंड क्या कौन से हैं, और इंडियन सिनेरियो से अगर हम कंपेयर करेंगे, सो लाइक व्हाट ऑल आर द थिंग्स जो स्टूडेंट को 11th या 10th 12th में ही टेक केयर करनी चाहिए इन टर्म्स ऑफ एग्जामिनेशन या स्कॉलरशिप पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी. सो अंगद सर, ओवर टू यू.
Yeah, I could see couple of questions also that in the chat itself. Many students ask the same thing. Coming back, I mean, definitely just picking one or two questions from the chat itself. So, guys, number one thing, if I talk or shell some more light over the medicine part precisely, I could say post your NEET results definitely might be you are not getting any good college or any other definitely a good med schools in India. So if you might be considering Australia or might be any oceanic country, if it's Australia, New Zealand, or any other one, the process is pretty different in comparison what we generally follow in India. Like in India, we generally give an exam called NEET UG more and less. But if I specifically talk about the Australia itself, which I think some students already ask comparisons between Russia and Australia and might be what scholarships we are eligible for. But more or less, there is a four-step process. So Jain sir already mentioned a lot about how academics play a very big role in Australian universities, whether it's Monash, whether it's UNSW, whether it's University of Western Australia. But more or less, medical pathway is very different in comparison what general majors being, whether you're applying to engineering, business, finance, or any other XYZ majors. So number one thing is that you need to take care is your academics. Your academics to be super good. I mean to say more than 90% is like a basic requirements for some of the top universities precisely. When I say top universities, definitely the ones that I talked 2 minutes back, Monash, UNSW, and University of Western Australia. These are like the top med schools precisely. After your academic scores being done, let's take an example, you get a good academic score, there is a test requirements that depends from university to university and definitely what specific major that you're targeting. So more or less in Australia, things are a little different. In some of the universities, you have an assured pathway where you actually complete your whole MBBS, but in some of the colleges, or some of the universities, more or less, you don't have an assured pathway. So talking bit about there are two exams. Number one is your ISAT, and second is your UCAT ANZ. I'm not sure, but more or less, some of you are already familiar about the UCAT if someone is applying for UK. UK UCAT is one of the exam that is acceptable by most of the universities. Similarly, we have a UCAT ANZ, which is applicable for Australia also. Like most of the universities in Australia accept the UCAT. But again, some universities accept the another exam that we call ISAT. Now, again, these two exams are like kind of a different polls. Pattern is very much different. It's not like that what you're preparing for your physics, chem, and biology as per your need could be there. So as Dipesh sir asked, like, what's the major difference between these two exams? So UCAT normally consists of four sections, which generally test in general, your quantitative, your verbal, your situational judgmental, and your decision making. And if I talk more or less about the ISAT, ISAT is an exam that tests your critical reasoning or your abstract reasoning, which definitely I'm sure might be, while preparing for your NEET exams, you're more inclined towards physics, chem, and biology sections. So definitely these two exams never test on your pure sciences, but rather they test on your overall, I could say, critical reasoning skills or your logical reasoning skills, more or less. Just I take a minute to give you like a glimpse of the pattern. So UCAT is out of 2700, like as per the new pattern. And guys, if you're planning something like a very top universities for medicine in Australia, then you need a baseline score of 21 to 2200 plus. That's like a new requirements. And if you're planning for the ISAT, definitely that most of the top schools or the top medical schools has like a basic requirement. Then you need to have a 90 to 85 plus percentile to be invited for the interviews. So the number one thing is your academics. That is definitely a really good academic scores. Second, a really great UCAT or ISAT scores. And third is your holistic profile. Definitely, that's not the primary requirement, I could say, in the medical colleges or universities in Australia, but more or less, I generally suggest to all my students who are applying for Australian universities that try to actually do some shadowing, like do some work under any physician, any gynecologist, oncologists, just to showcase that how you're motivated to do medicine for next 5 or 6 years in Australia, more or less. So that's the three pointers. Talking about up the fourth pointer is your MMIs, that is mini interviews. For some of the universities, you'll be invited for the medical interviews like Monash UNSW, where you need to, I mean, it's more or less like a small interviews, but definitely your selection depends upon number one, your scores. That is a test scores, and second, it depends upon your interviews that's being happening in the campus or whether it's online. So that's the pacer more or less bit about the basic structure of the medicine. If I just want to give the glimpse, talking bit about I think the tuition cost and all, which I could see like multiple questions in the chat. So guys, again, the tuition cost for the medicine in Australia more or less for each year costs you around 31 to 44 lakhs, depending upon the university to university. Again, some scholarship options being there, but for medicine, it's very limited, not as much what Sujain sir mentioned with you, like these are the scholarships that you might be eligible for. Engineering might be business, finance, or any other majors. But again, Australian medicine works more or less like the Indian medicine. It's 5.5 to 6 years. 5 years are overall medicine being there, and 1 year you need to do a research with your whatever you're picking in, whether you want to master it in general physician, you want to master it in gynecology, oncology, or whatever you wanted to do. And then you need to give like an exam called AMC, that is more or less like NEET PG that we normally gives in India itself. So your pathway, if I calculate for your MBBS and your MD, that will be comes around something to 8 to 9 years when you'll be becoming more or less like a professional doctor. But that's how the things normally work. Similarly in New Zealand, and similarly that's works in Australia too. So, just to give you overall crux once again, there are four basic requirements. Number one, your good academic scores. Second, having your ISAT or definitely your UCAT ANZ. That requirements changes as per university to university. Third, having a good holistic profiles. If you have certainly good shadowing hours, good volunteering, then I suggest definitely you could have certainly a good holistic profile to showcase to the universities. And last but not the least is your interview segment that again have a very high weightage in Australian medical schools, precisely. So I'll just pick one question here. Might be someone asks because it's more or less aligning. Yes, Bhargavi, IELTS definitely. So IELTS is definitely is an English language. So IELTS is a primary requirement for any university, whether you're applying for UK or whether you're applying for Australia. So I got a question. We are international winners competition held by IEEE, publish patents to qualification. So again, I'm not sure what's your name, but yes, Australian medical schools not focus more on your holistic profiles. But again, considering the facts, you're qualified IOQM, you have NMTC, you have a patent, even you have a research paper, that will be like a cherry on a cake in your overall portfolio when you are submitting for the top 3 or 4 medical schools, and definitely have a more higher chances what you have mentioned. But again, more or less that depends what is your predictive grade 12 scores and how much you're getting in your ISAT that you'll be planning for next year. So that's the overall thing. And again, just to give you a glimpse, your UCAT scores are applicable for 1 year. UCAT ANZ means if you're planning, let's say for 2026, then you need to give this year itself, 2025, for which unfortunately time is more or less now over. But if you're planning for ISAT, then that score is more or less applicable for 2 years. That means if you're in grade 11, you could still give your ISAT and you could still apply to the universities in grade 12. But that's not the case in UCAT. If you want to give UCAT, you need to give, let's take an example in grade 12 itself, if you are in your CBSE curriculum. So I think that's the pace a bit about the glimpse. Rest, I mean, I'll take your questions over Q&A, last round of the call then.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for this information.
Anytime.
Uh, Now, my next question is to Sujan sir. Sujan sir, this is the most asked question after this medicine, and the most important one as well. Uh, After graduation, राइट स्टूडेंट और पेरेंट का नॉर्मली ये रहता है कि आफ्टर ग्रेजुएशन द लॉन्ग टर्म जो हम प्लान कर रहे हैं कि व्हाट विल बी द लॉन्ग टर्म प्लान की पोस्ट स्टडी वीजा राइट लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए अगर हम सोच रहे हैं सो द माय क्वेश्चन इज कि हाउ डू अ पोस्ट स्टडी वर्क वीजा ग्रेजुएट जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज स्टूडेंट लाइफस्टाइल okay how it differ from in between of Australia and New Zealand, and which country is the better for long term fit for various students profile. So this is for you, Sujan sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So it's actually a very subjective question to answer, but yes, as you can see the screen, I'll just be bifurcating the answer in this way. But I'll talk about first, like how and how you can compare these two countries. And I'll first start with comparing, three areas, all right? I can pick from here and I'll talk about mostly which can give the clear recommendation. that, like which one would be good for you, which one is the best fit for the long term as per the student. Like maybe if I have a profile of this, then I can go with, such kind of universities, and that university falls under, falls in any of these two countries. Maybe let's say that's in Australia. Of course, Australia will be the best fit for the long term for your profile. So I'll start with first giving you the idea on the, of course, you can see in the very first side that in the very right side of it, right? So it's 2 to 4 years, right? Uh, so it is actually giving you other than the time to stay in Australia, right? It's not that you're getting with the any visas, right? It's you if you're international students, you're studying there for 3 to 4 years program or 5 years program, including any of the majors which we all have discussed, right? So any of the majors you're going to, you will entitled to get that of 2 to 4 years of stay. Okay, depending on the stream and qualification. So that is 2 to 4 years. So the min in the bracket of it, minimum 2 years and the maximum is 4 years. And the other programs will be depending on if let's say you're going for other, because we particularly talking about the undergrad and masters, and then PhD would be there right in the picture. Then PhD has that of certain different benefits. So for them, you will be able to find other, the duration of stay in Australia and New Zealand. But especially for the majors, I mean the degree level, when you're going to undergrad and masters, of course, this will be ranging from 2 to 4 years. And uh, after that, when you are applying for certain other things, like maybe if PR is your goal, right? Then of course these things will be helping you a lot because you will be staying there for 3 years to 5 years. I mean more than that, because 3 to 4 years you already have a spent in your education, studying your subjects, right? So 4 years of the stay and then graduation from Australia and then your 3 years of stay, it total makes that of 7 years of stay in Australia, right? So eventually it help you reaching your goal when you're applying for PR in the in this country, right? And of course, this will help you when you're staying with that of right combination of jobs too, because jobs will also be defining your skill sets for finding out which NOC you fall in, and then eventually you can easily get that permanent residency kind of things in future. But when we are particularly talking about the temporary graduate visa, that's the student visa is, it will be giving you 2 to 4 years of stay in Australia. Similarly, it is helping students who are studying in New Zealand. They can also, graduate can also get that of 3 years. I mean, that's up to 3 years. So it will be depending on the qualification you go to. Let's say you're going for the level 7 program, level 8 programs, level 9 programs. So it will be depending on what length of the program you're going to in New Zealand. It is very much similar to the Canadian work rights, but here you would have that of different, the levels of the program which has a different definitions. So we can easily talk about those definitions for those programs because they have different specific occupations too. So it will be in the simpler run, I'll say it's very much predictable that post study work rules, if you're comparing it to the Australia, it is on a better side, right? So New Zealand has slightly better work rights opportunities, and you can also still, like try for the, let's say, peer kind of things if you're aiming for it, but that's something we cannot discuss here because peer is more subjective question to again answer, because there are a lot of things gets into it, your age, your other skill sets, your experience, your, the kind of job you're doing. As I mentioned, it's very much skilled to the previous subjects which you had in the country, right? So these things will be helping you getting your PR things, right, later on. But when we are particularly talking about the temporary visa, you could have a chance to get off up to 3 years of stay after your graduation. So 4 years or 3 years of the graduation and then 3 years of a stay. It makes that up again 6 years of complete stay in the very beautiful country, right? And with that of multi options of choosing your, different set of jobs. So higher employability is of course in the Australia because Australia is having of a large economy and larger market, and that of lot of opportunities, right? Of course, in the sectors like engineering, finance, healthcare, they have a very big employability chances for, students going to Australia. Reason behind is, as I mentioned, large cities, large economy. It's a, I guess, the eighth economy in the world right now. And with that of option of, PR prospects, ultimately every students look for, then it also becomes, very high in demand for such students who are looking to Australia just not for the study destination, for the other purposes too. Then Australia, with that of large economy, with that of good payout, with that of fast track life, with that of lot of other benefits, it makes really good for any students to choose Australia over any other countries right now. With that of cheaper market, I mean cheaper tuition fee, with that of other benefits where you're getting salary from the very first day of landing. So benefits are of course here in this Australia market just because of the economy they have right now. New Zealand, on the other side, of course, comparatively very low with that of demand for industries because of the reason have of very small market size. Having just because of a small market size doesn't stop them to give the options to international students to go with that of really some programs like biotech, right? Some programs in the healthcare, some programs in the IT, in tourism, in hospitality, in uh, programs like the culinary arts, where the students choose those subjects for just because of the interest they have or they had. So they choose such majors and they are still making a good money in New Zealand too. So it's just not depending on the economy. One side is that where Australia will of course uh, win this title, right? But when you're comparing it for the subjects which you're interested in, let's say as I mentioned, uh, agri tech programs, construction programs, low skilled kind of some programs where people generally think not going abroad, right? But those are really good, like healthcare includes your nursing, right? The programs where you could have a really good chance staying there for the longer year, and you could also have a chance to make a good network in New Zealand market, because बहुत कम लोग हैं तो बहुत लिमिटेड डिस्कशंस, बहुत लिमिटेड लोगों से बातचीत, एक फ्रूटफुल डिस्कशंस, and then these things will surely help you to outsize everything. And it's, as I mentioned, it's easier for, because this is helping you to make you stand out, right, in the niche market in New Zealand. So you'll just not become that, the small fish in the big pond, right? You will be the big fish in the small pond, a kind of it that you will have the benefit when you go to the New Zealand for such subjects, especially for such subjects, not for all. So it's very much recommended for some programs, not for all. If you're considering New Zealand as a country, or if your budget is on a slightly on the lower side, then of course you should choose New Zealand over Australia. But if you're looking to the really fancy names, good ranked programs, good ranked colleges, with that of lot of ROI as we discussed, so Australia would be the better options. I mentioned I will discuss the three topics. I summarized first thing here, the post-study work rights. Then I confirmed here the opportunities, I mean the graduate opportunities after you are done with your study, right? So before study, I mean when you're studying, you're working. When you're done with your study, you're still getting a job. And when we are particularly talking about these things, we are talking about how you're balancing your work study life, right? Because cost of living, cost of tuition is something that is the variable part, right? Cost of tuition is variable, but cost of living uh, is more variable, right? Tuition is where university is deciding everything. Living cost and how you're making your life easier for for your in these two countries is based on how you manage your day-to-day life, right? So expensive side, of course, Australia will be there in any cities if you're comparing to it. But if you're industry specific, of course, you can choose slightly cheaper option here, that is New Zealand for such programs. Now we are talking about uh, work rights that you get in when you're studying, right? Let's say you're studying in Australia, then your part-time visa will be giving you 20 hours per week and 40 hours fortnightly. It was before this August and all. Right now it is 48 hours fortnightly and 96 hours, in overall month while you're studying. Right. But if you're taking the gap in the years, I mean, in your study, or there's a break, there's a summer breaks or something like that, you can work full time in those months. So eventually it happens twice in a year. Then you are working for the 5 months or the 4 months part-timer on the 48 hours per, fortnightly. And then you're working in the 2 months in a year when you're working full-timely, right? Then you would be getting the full-time salary too for working for, like such companies. So you can find out, but this is what is given on your visa, on your study visa. Culture-wise, Australia has a big campus, multicultural cities. Uh, yeah, here. So big city campuses are there, multicultural cities, lot of course, nightlife, and then, like you have networking options in Australia. Whereas in New Zealand, of course, the hustle bustle kind of things would be very far from your life. Smaller campuses would be there. Uh, Culture is very tempting. It's very, like good for any students who wants to live their student life without a soothing mindset. Then, of course, New Zealand is the best option where uh, you would prefer going if you're nature loving, person. Then, of course, you will choose New Zealand as an option for you. Yeah, of course, outdoor lifestyle is pretty good when you're, near to the nature. So that is what is for, I would say. Now coming to, if you're comparing these two country, you should not compare on only on these three factors. I would say you should compare on the factors like what kind of the companies are available, what kind of the sectors where you can get that more, values, and you can stay there for the longer years. Let's say for finance and business programs, what cities have that of good salary that you can get. Of course, I'll recommend Sydney, Melbourne for you if you're choosing finance as a subject for, like for your undergrad and for masters, right? But when you're talking about, let's say, health science program, nursing programs, I'll recommend you going for both countries. It will be depending on your factors like your budget, your factors like your scores, academic scores, your other scores, so that we can accordingly tell you that which country is more better for you for such programs. But as I mentioned, some programs like agri-tech, right? Some programs like environmental science, some programs like where there is not a lot of networking needed, industry networking needed, right? So you can easily filter out such options and go for such, universities in New Zealand too. So that is again the recommendation based on certain other things. First, this was based on the budget too. Second is on the kind of the lifestyle you want to go for, the kind of the job opportunities you want to explore, and most importantly, of course, the kind of the packages that you're looking up to. So I'll just to summarize everything once again. Pick Australia if you want to go for the bigger cities, if you want to go for the bigger cities opportunities, if you are looking for a corporate life a lot and then a lot of, those schemes, of course, Australia would be much, better option for such students. But at the same time, you look at to the changing visa rules if is any things that is not helping you to stay there or to get some benefits, whatever you're looking for, you also make a track of it and browse such website where you can get such details. So pick Australia when you have certain these things on the priority list. But and of course the top 50 universities, if you're looking for, right, pick Australia. If you're looking for 20 to 40% of scholarships and you want to save some money for your undergrad, and that too from the top colleges, with that of the cities, studying cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and these, of course, pick Australia because that is where you would have such livable life. Pick New Zealand when you want to have a very when you want to lower pressure life, student life, easy life, very, you know सामने ही एम्प्लॉयर कहीं चार पांच पड़े होंगे, उनसे ही बातचीत करनी वाली वैसी लाइफ, वेरी नीश सेक्टर्स यू वांटेड टू गो फॉर, agri-tech, engineering, nursing, kind of it, very quick, where you don't need a lot of changes in your life, right? When you're not been career-wise, you're changing your jobs a lot, right? So of course, for the simpler and clear post-study work rights with that of up to 3 years, that is pretty easy to understand. You're applying, you're getting 3 years of a stay, and that too in the very low hustle bustle city. So New Zealand is because of it. This is what I'll give you a suggestion for students who are not been able to pick up what is good for them. Don't just look at to the ranking. Ranking is one factor that is contingent. It is for Australia right now, for 5 universities in top 15, maybe a couple of them will come of New Zealand in the top 50, right? So New Zealand or the ranking, it's the best in the New Zealand are the universities like AUT, University of Auckland, Massey, and Otago. But these are not bad universities. The ranking could be of 90, 50, 60, 100. But if you're choosing New Zealand, don't just look at the ranking because rank universities are triple A credited, most of them. There are 8 universities, 7 or 6 of them are triple A credited. So you will not face any challenges in studying or in research or getting financial support or the life that you want to live in New Zealand. So I'll summarize in these two in this way.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all these things. And as you said, कि it depends on the students' priorities. कि उनको उनकी priorities क्या हैं, what all are the factors they are considering, what kind of a profile, which course they are looking for. So there are a couple of factors जिसके basis पे हम ये decide कर सकते हैं कि which country we should prefer, either New Zealand or Australia. Although you have explained, but still, students, if you have anything and you would like to get a detailed counseling session, so you can connect with us anytime. Now my next question is to Angad sir. Angad sir, basically every student who would like to studying abroad, they prefer top universities, right? अगर हम ऑस्ट्रेलिया की बात करें specifically, so Monash, Melbourne, UNSW. So as you both have been talking about the grades, so grades is one factor जो होना ही चाहिए प्रोफाइल के अंदर. But apart from the grades, if you can just uh, talk about what all are the things to get an admission in Australia most competitive universities, as I mentioned, Monash, Melbourne, on these type of universities. So what all are the things who can build a competitive edge beyond just grades? Angad sir.
Yes, Dipesh, I think that's like a common questions with most of the students, how we could crack these top schools. No, definitely grades is one of the deciding factor. There is no single doubt in that, or no single, other question we could do here. But yes, generally, I tell my students there are three factors that you need to take care of whenever you are applying for any top schools, whether it's Australia, whether it's New Zealand, whether it's US, whether it's UK. So, number one, if I talk bit about your academics, definitely I suggest you could have certainly good international accreditations, or I must say international Olympiads more or less, where you could actually showcase some good rankings in your overall academic sections. That is one of the factor that you could consider for sure. If I talk bit about in the holistic profile segment, the majority of the three factors comes in the VIP segmentation. So here V stands for your volunteering or how you're making a dent for a community. So I'll just give you like one of the case study. One of my students, she got into UMass in the MBBS, and she got into other top schools in Australia itself. Now, how she showcased her story, like she got or her she had a bone fracture 2 years back, and to showcase the same in her personal statements, she did a community work where she raised funding, or more or less did a crowdfunding for the people who are actually suffering from bone cancers. So if you will see, she's making a hook where she's more or less making a dent for a society. So the number one thing that's more or less important in your portfolio, which I tell definitely that will vary from either you're from medicine or non-med majors, which is definitely engineering or natural sciences. But one for sure thing is your volunteering or how you're creating the dent for the society. In the VIP segment, I stands for your internship, or more or less, I could say research. Again, this things varies a lot. I mean, lot of universities in Australia give you an option to do research internships. They have their own applications for the summer programs, whether it's UNSW, Monash, you could try to tap in those research or might be an internship. But when I talk more about the more in the depth of the research process, the number one thing that comes or that I tell all my students is that try to create a project that more or less showcase the motivation factor towards your major. Like, just to give you an example, I have a student who is more motivated towards physics and astronomy. So he created a project with me where we were actually collecting the data sets from NASA and other space organization, STSCI, JAXA, and all. And from that, he is actually predicting that what are the chances or which planet is more or less habitable in Kepler's belt. So if you will see, he created a passion for the major that he wanted to tap in. And that passion, more or less, you need to mention in your personal statements or your SOPs whenever you're submitting to the universities. So when I talk about the research, the number one thing that comes in is your project. Second, try to show the authenticity of that project, and that could be shown with the help of either try to publish that project, or either way. I was seeing in the chat, one student was telling, I have a patent of my product. That also could be one of the possibilities. Or other than that, you could present in some of the STEM competitions. There are a lot of STEM competitions. You might be could have a word with me post this webinar. We could have a one-on-one discussion. But again, that's what more or less about the I part of the VIP segment stands for. And definitely the P stands for your passion project, which I speak more or less more about that only. But your passion project is very important. So make sure your profile always have a factor that showcase the motivation in your personal statements and that showcase your motivation towards a major, irrespective you're targeting medicine, engineering, any engineering, if it's mechatronics, mechanical, electrical, computer science, chemical, your that motivation factor should be there. Like, take an example, computer science is more or less like in a trend. Everyone wants to do artificial intelligence or might be data science as a primary major. So make sure you should be familiar with some courses, you should be familiar with Python, machine learning, LLMs, and that application factor should be highlighted in your project. And definitely that project authenticity should be showcased with the help of the research paper that I've mentioned 2 to 3 minutes back. So that's the majority of the cases, Dipesh sir. But again, I mean, to be honest, profile building is an endless process for any top schools in Australia precisely. But this changes as per your major and this changes as per the requirements of the university. But whatever I'm talking about here, these factors, they're more or less applicable for the top 4 or 5 universities. Whatever I think Sujain sir also mentioned to you, UMass, UNSW, or University of Western Australia. So these are some of the universities where definitely, apart from the grades, you could enhance your profile, increase the chances of scholarships, increase the chance of getting admit from that particular university. So that's a bit about that, Dipesh sir.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for answering these questions.
Anytime.
We have also received couple of questions in our chat box, so I'll take one by one. So the very first question is, what's about packages? So packages, if I'm able to understand, is it related to the job opportunities? So Sujan sir, you can just answer and a very brief, like what all are the packages, what about job, although you have answered earlier also, but you can just brief कि कितना हम expect कर सकते हैं अगर ऑस्ट्रेलिया में ग्रेजुएशन किया है और न्यूजीलैंड में ग्रेजुएशन किया है, so after graduation कितना पैकेज हम expect कर सकते हैं.
Packages will be, like depending on the city first. I think I have already covered this. So it's depend on city, the program you go to, and the kind of the experience you show when you're hitting the market, right? Let's say you already have done the internship in the same domain, right? And the program you were doing. Internships you are doing in the part-time, in place of that you're doing internships. So of course you can look for the better, the options when you're hitting the market full-timely, right? So as per my observation and the kind of the data that we have, it's ranging between $60,000 to 1 lakh, dollars for most of the programs. Again, it will be depending on cities. Tier one, if it is tier one, of course, the salary would be on the higher side. If you're going for the tier two or tier three cities you're working in, of course, you will get that of 10,000, 20,000 lesser than to the tier one cities. But it will be the range of $60,000 to 1 lakh dollars.
Okay. Our second question is New Zealand and Australia fees looks very expensive compared to Russia for medical students. So basically, Anga sir, this is for you. Uh, रशिया में अगर मेडिसिन करने स्टूडेंट जा रहा है तो ये इनका क्वेश्चन है कि व्हाई ही शुड प्रेफर न्यूजीलैंड एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया
So
एज कंपेयर टू रशिया इन टर्म्स ऑफ फी पार्ट.
So exactly, definitely the fees for Australian medical schools are more expensive. There is no other doubt in that. But again, the question being the quality of the medicine, the overall point being, now from now onwards, I think from next year itself, Next will be implementing. So when next will implement, might be some of the Russian medical schools from Georgia and other neighboring countries will not be applicable, that you could actually try for next and practice in India. But that's not the case with Australia. I mean, definitely you could do your MD itself after giving AMC. But overall, to give you a glimpse, as I told you, 31 to 44 lakhs gonna be your tuition for 1 year for Australia. But more or less in Russia, your 44, 50 lakhs will be overall tuition for your overall MBBS, that for 5 or 6 years. So that's a major difference. But again, as I told you, um, number one thing, your might be MBBS will not be accepted. I'm not talking about top 2 or 3 universities like Perm and all, but post that might be the case after 1 or 2 years when you'll be doing your MBBS that not be accepted in India. Whereas in the case for Australia, you have some options for the scholarship. I'm not saying in MBBS you'll get scholarships, it's very rare, but you'll get some good scholarships. But more or less in the fees comparisons part that someone has asked, for sure, Australia is on the higher end in comparison to Russia.
Yes sir. Our next question is from Bhargavi. So Bhargavi is asking for scholarship in UK for MBBS. Although it is not related with this webinar topic, but still, if you could just answer.
So, Bhargavi, again, your scholarship in UK, to be honest, in the UG level, scholarships are pretty limited. And definitely, that depends upon your grades also and your profile at one extent. Not like profile matters, but not a lot. There are not a lot of scholarships in UK MBBS, but again, there are some. Let's say I remember Hulk York scholarship given by University of Hull, Brunel scholarship, but very limited. Not lot of MBBS courses in UK give you lot of scholarship. You need to directly pay one shot fees for most of the medical universities in UK.
Yeah, and just because of quality.
Exactly, that's like the quality comparison that I give from Russia and Australia thing.
Yes. So our next question, it is for you, Sujan sir. Uh, Mr. Sheikh Ahmed has asked Telangana State Board in 11th and 12th. It's accepted. So basically, he's asking for the universities. The state board, which is Telangana State Board, so it is accepted or not?
Uh, of course, it will be accepted for some colleges, some universities. Uh, but of course, you have to have a really good score in your, class 12th, because with that of 90% lesser for such states board, right? Especially for J&K, Haryana, Telangana, Bihar, and these all, they usually have that of higher requirement, but not all of them are accepting. Some of them still accept these state sports. So if you'll come to us, of course, we'll try find out that where we can help you applying to such universities with the Telangana board.
Okay, so basically marks matter the most instead of board,
Of
right?
course, but yeah, if you're a CBSE background or ICSE or
Mhm.
IB background student, you might not face that kind of music that state students will face, right? Because state students in India mostly they have that of such issues of language plus their boards also oftenly they don't give really good score, right? But these boards are have some issues when they submitted their profile in these countries before, and then they come up with this kind of the new rules policies to stop accepting application from some boards. But of course some universities still they're accepting applications, and we'll surely find out what universities we can offer to them.
Okay, sir. Our next question is someone has typed his complete profile actually. So the question is for you, Angad sir. The question is student has typed like we are international winners of competition held by IEEE where over 1,000 teams participated, and we also have applied for patents as well,
Mm-hmm.
and are planning to publish a paper. We also have volunteering experience in various fields as well. Academic also we have about 97 in 10th, and level 2 qualification in maths competition, IOQM, NMTC. Will this profile help to get scholarship? Basically he has mentioned his profile and he's looking for like, is there any chance for getting scholarship in Australia as well as other universities?
Again, definitely, if it's Australia or any other university, by giving your profile, it's not like that you will get a scholarship, but your profile looks amazing to me, promising to me. Again, you could connect post this webinar one-on-one with me. I'll tell you certain pointers where definitely you need to improve, because I could see still you mentioned that you haven't published your work. That is one of the thing. But again, in Australian universities, your preference is given. I'm not saying not being given, but not a lot to your profile segment. Whatever you have done, definitely have chances to get admitted to the university. But again, your scholarship depends upon n number of factors. Whatever you have mentioned, we can't just say that you have, let's say, 80% scholarship guaranteed from any university.
Yes, sir. So basically, we'll require a detailed resume in which year
Exactly,
12
exactly.
he has passed out. So after getting the detailed resume, then we can help him out. So you can just connect with us. We have shared our number in the chat box as well, and we'll have a proper detailed counseling session with Angad sir. Our next question is for engineering, which are the good universities and in which city? So Susan sir, if you could just answer. So basically, someone is asking for engineering only, universities and the city as well.
Hmm. So we are discussing here two countries, so it's not very specific to the country.
Mhm.
So I'll give you the option in for both countries. In Australia, of course, as we both mentioned and we discussed everything around to the academics, right? So academically, you have to be really sound. If your academics are good, your backgrounds are good, your boards are, we discussed as per them. So of course, we surely would have that of chance to get in the top five, top eight universities. Mostly, you will see that top eight universities are group eight of Australian colleges, right? Australian universities. So either it will be, and these universities are available, four and five of them in the Melbourne and Sydney location, right? So if you're going for Melbourne, of course, options like Uni Melbourne will be there, Monash is there. If you're going to Sydney, engineering programs are available in all universities in Australia. Across any universities you apply, you will be able to get that engineering programs in all universities. Now it up to you that what your background is. Accordingly, we'll give you the idea that what BN's program is really good in these locations. Of course, top five locations, if you'll go to it, these will be Melbourne, Sydney. and then the Canberra, Perth, and then Brisbane. So these are the location you should first prioritize if you're looking for really good technical subjects to study in Australia. Secondly, when you're tapping New Zealand as a market for the technical subjects, uh, three locations, I would say three cities are pretty good. If you go with Auckland has two, three universities. I mean, two you can easily go with the universities that's in the top, the two in the rank in New Zealand. Those are University of Auckland, AUT. AUT and University of Auckland are really good universities for technical subjects. If you're going to the universities in Otago, of course, University of Otago would be the third option you can try. So these city in New Zealand would be the best for engineering subjects.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much, both of you, for answering all the questions. And like all the attendees, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. And we hope it was helpful and informative. For further guidance, connect with us. We have shared our helpline numbers in the chat box. So, wishing you all the very best for your study abroad journey. Thank you. Have a happy Sunday. Bye.
Yeah, have a great day, guys. Wishing you a great Sunday. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye all.